Hi, I'm Rob, and in this Gems of War video, I'm going to take a look in the Soulforge and tell you what I think is good and bad in there this week, what's worth crafting and what you should avoid like the plague. Anyway, a bear walks into a bar and says, "Give me a whiskey and cola." "Why the big paws?" asked the bartender. The bear shrugged. "I'm not sure. I was born with them." Yep, they get worse. Anyway, the weekly event troop this week, let's take a look at this. This is the Umbral Giant. This one deals damage to an enemy, then converts 5 green gems to brown giant gems. So damage and potentially a mana converter, or mana generator. But the thing is about these spells is it can set up the opposition in a big way at the same time. If the enemy uses brown, you could actually cast that and then not get anything yourself and then set up the opposition. But when it goes in your favour, you will get a lot of mana from it. But hit and miss on the spell. Not a fan of those sort of things that are a little bit luck based, or a lot luck based. Traits: all enemies lose 2 random skill points, cannot be targeted by spells is good, and create a brown giant gem when I take skull damage. So not bad, but same as the other ones, this gets a okay 6 out of 10. It just loses a mark here and there because basically it can set up the opposition, so it's not ideal. And he's a shady guy, as it says there. Anyway, onto the Soulforge itself. Oh, same as before, like those troops, if you do have the glory, take it all the way up to Mythic level if you can. This gives you another troop to get to level 20, and that is going to aid the power levels on your kingdoms in the long run. You can grab some Spores of War while you're here as well, if you still have glory left over. Event keys, gold, souls, all good. Just for some of that glory, which is probably sitting there doing nothing. Right, games. Let's Soulforge. Let's take a look at the weapons first. Not going to go over all the ones that are here all the time, just the ones which are new. First up is Nature's Star. Remove all brown gems, then deal magic-based damage to an enemy boosted by the gems removed. If the enemy is from Nexus or the battle is in Nexus, deal double damage. So this is what I would class as a anti-Nexus weapon, if you like. You do double damage if the enemy is from Nexus or the battle is in Nexus, and you remove all brown gems with no effect. That is important. We don't use brown for this weapon, so you want to make sure that the rest of your team doesn't use brown itself, otherwise you're actually hurting yourself, which you don't want to do. So if the team you're using and the enemy against meets those requirements, this can be really useful, but otherwise it's not that fantastic. One of the best things about it is actually in the upgrades. It entangles the first enemy when you cast this, which is actually pretty cool. But it's, yeah, pretty situational, not essential. Pawn's Blade. Deal damage to an enemy boosted by green and elemental allies. So the more green and elemental allies you have, the more damage you're going to do, but the boost is pretty small. And it's, yeah, 14 mana cost for that. There are far better weapons out there. That is absolutely just collectible. Vulcan's Mace. Deals damage to an enemy boosted by Nexus allies. Then create a mix of 6 red and brown for each Nexus ally. Now what's interesting about this weapon is it uses brown itself. A lot of these weapons for the other kingdoms actually use opposite colours that the actual weapon needs to get charged, which means it can't self-charge. But this one uses brown and creates brown, so it can actually self-charge and do it again, which is really cool and it gives it the edge. I like this one. This is actually not too bad at all, providing the rest of your team also use some red and brown as well. Ocea's Tome. Now we're talking. Explode 4 gems for each blue ally and each elemental ally. So just, if you have blue using manas like we do here, this uses blue automatically, or elemental, then make sure they are all in your team. Everybody uses blue or everyone else is a elemental, and you are going to explode 16 gems. That is a lot. Now what's really cool about this weapon is it's a great leveler if you're a newer player to the game. It doesn't matter if you're level 1 or level 8000, you are still going to explode the same amount of gems. So if you're a newer player, absolutely fantastic. One of the things about some of the other weapons that explode gems is a lot of them use or need your magic level to be high to explode a decent amount of gems. Not the case with this. Just stick in blue allies, elemental allies, you are going to explode a ton of gems. Absolutely superb for newer players and experienced ones alike. Just go get it now, it's absolutely fantastic. Chryster's Scythe stuns all enemies, then creates 3 elemental stars. Bit and hit and miss on the spell. The stun can be really important against certain opponents. Those ones you want to stun immediately to stop them doing something really relevant on their spell. Queen Beatrix, Obsidious, I'm looking at you. That can be really, really good. But the 3 elemental stars thing is, again, hit and miss. It's like if they align in your favour, can be great. It can set up the opposition, which is not so great. So again, situational, bit of luck in its casting, but if it goes your way, it can be decent. But Ocea's Tome, absolutely the pick of the bunch of the weapons this week. Absolutely just go and get that straight away if you have the diamonds and you are looking for a new weapon. And that is the weapons. Let's take a look at the troops. Same deal. I'm not going to go over the same ones that are here all the time. Oh, one quick mention, really important, is Rowan is in the summoning stones on green this week. If you're a newer player and you don't have Rowan, spend a few of your summoning stones just trying to get her. She is absolutely fantastic. One of the best troops in the game. Works really well if you're a newer player or a experienced one as well. Deals a decent amount of scatter damage boosted by her armor. Really, really good. So many uses for her. It's absolutely superb. Fantastic. Just go and spend some summoning stones. Roll the dice. See if you can get her. Absolutely great stuff. Go over those legendaries in a minute. Just take a look at the new mythics first that are here, that aren't here every single week. First up is Arachnian Weaver. Webs all enemies, which is major straight away. When an enemy is webbed, their magic gets reduced to 0. And that massively reduces the effect of everybody's spells. It's really, really good. Fantastic on its own, but also it deals a decent amount of true damage to the last 2 enemies. And the good thing is, it's the last 2 enemies, so this can target effectively stealthy opponents. So you can hit somebody that you couldn't ordinarily target. So it certainly is good against those teams that like to put their most powerful troops in the last 2 slots. Really good in that way. And if an enemy dies, explode 15 gems. The traits are absolutely awesome at the same time. Cannot be targeted by spells. Is impervious, so is immune to all status effects, Devour, Lycanthropy and Mana Burn. And Creeping Doom, a 75% chance to summon a web spinner when an enemy dies. So really good traits. This pairs really, really well with a weapon like Life and Death. And if you can do that, like basically Life and Death does true damage to the last 2 opponents as well, because it steals life, which is effectively true damage. But when you do that, you want to cast Life and Death first and Arachnian Weaver second, because if you kill one of those troops with Arachnian Weaver, you are going to then explode those 15 gems and get a load of mana for the team at the same time. Absolutely superb troop. Shabanu Vespera. Really good troop. High mana cost, but if it gets going in the correct team, it is going to be absolutely awesome. Gives a certain amount to a random skill on an ally, then creates 9 gems of their mana colour, then repeats it 2 more times for random allies. So the way to use this is, in the ideal world, all the rest of your team would use a single colour of either blue, purple or yellow. So just blue, nothing else on all the other troops. And what this means is when you cast this, you would cast this on one of those troops. And because of the way this spell works, create 9 gems of their mana colour, and then repeat 2 more times for random allies, the chances are you're going to get an absolute ton of that colour, in this case blue, and just get 4 matches all over the place, give random boosts on skills to your team all over the place, and get to do it just again and again and again. It's absolutely superb, and the same trick will work on a purple or yellow at the same time. Really good. Just got to make sure you get it charged nice and quickly. 30% chance to summon a Jin when matching 4 or more gem matches. Gives it some resilience if you should lose a troop, because you get 4 matches a lot with this and you can easily get a summoned troop. But yeah, very good indeed in the right team. Do love Shabanu. Dao is kind of the opposite of Shabanu. Eliminates skill from an enemy this time and destroys gems of one of their mana colours. then repeat 2 more times for random enemies. So you're not going to be charging your team as easily as this, I don't think, because you are destroying gems. It doesn't work anywhere near as well as Shabanu Vespera for me. It's something I actually don't really use. So yeah, Dao, more like Dao. And Tiamat is the last one. Deals a really good amount of damage to all enemies, particularly good against those stealthy opponents like Arachnian Weaver, for example, who you can't target. Damage to all is the way to go about hitting them most of the time. Then create 3x4 wildcards. And again, bizarrely, it's that 3x4 wildcards about the spell I don't actually like. I'm not keen on these troops that basically can set up the opposition if the game decides it's going to go that way. But the damage is good. I do like the troop itself. It's a bit of a homage to Tiamat from an old animated series of Dungeons and Dragons, which had Avenger in it and Tiamat. Anybody remember that? Absolutely superb animated series. Love it. And the traits are okay. Reduced damage from skulls by 30% is good. 24% chance to create a ×2 wildcard when matching 4 or more gems is okay, but it can set up the opposition as well. And gain 10 life when an enemy casts a spell, again, is a bit odd because you don't really want the enemy casting spells. You want to get rid of them before they have a chance to, or restrict them from casting spells. So that trait only becomes useful when the enemy's doing something to you, which is, yeah, not great. Yeah, so who is going to get my coveted Mythic of the Week? We'll come to that in a minute. I'm just going to go over the legendaries first. As ever, don't really recommend spending your hard-earned diamonds on these. They are going to turn up in chests far easier than Mythics will. Now, Jarl Firemantle creates 9 red and 9 yellow, then deals magic-based damage to an enemy. Uses red himself, so this can self-charge and repeat. And indeed, I remember a game when I was a newer player where this thing just repeated casted again and again and again until I was dead. It was like really annoying. But when it works in your favour, it can be really, really good. Ankum. Decent troop this. Deals damage to all enemies boosted by cursed enemies, and for every cursed enemy give a barrier to a random ally, which is really useful. And the Curse of Ket, the last trait, 25% chance to curse a random enemy when my turn begins, obviously helps the spell at the same time. And is actually has a mana shield as well, immune to mana burn, mana drain and mana steal. Very useful. Vesuvius, another good troop that does damage to all, this time boosted by burning and enraged allies and enemies. And a 50% chance to burn a random enemy at the start of my turn boosts the damage, as does enrage myself when I take damage. And is that it? Nope, Nexus Portal, last one. Create 4 to 6 elemental stars and summon a random Nexus troop. Again, those elemental stars, when they work in your favour, it will be good, but they can come along and just set up the opposition and not be good, which is really annoying, so therefore I tend to not use that troop very much at all. But now we go to the coveted Mythic of the Week, and it can only really be one troop, well, 2 really, Shabanu and Arachnian Weaver, but has to go to Arachnian Weaver. Absolutely superb. As I said, pairs really, really well with Life and Death as a really good true damage team where you can wipe out the bottom 2 troops really quickly. Explodes gems as well, gets a summon, is really hard to target. You need to fight this with a damage to all team really to get into it, and is all round fantastic. Well, there's the Soulforge review for this week. If you enjoyed it, why not bash that like and subscribe button. And I'll be back later on with my World Event team. But thanks for watching this one. Bye for now.